Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
It is time for our Outdoor Tidbits with Mr. Jake Bolks, DNR Warden for the state of Wisconsin. Well, Jake, I know the last couple Thursdays we've talked to you. It's been, kind of warm and such, a little bit rainy right now, depending on where you're listening to us from. But good morning, bud. How you doing?
Morning. I'm doing good. It's funny you said that because I feel like it's a recurring bit where I say it's such a nice morning, but ironically, in Elk Mound where I'm at, the storms move through and it's beautiful. The sky right now, and so it's pretty. We got some rain this morning, but it's much needed. So It's actually pretty nice over here. Kind of corny, but it is. Another Thursday.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Jake. It seems like bear hunting is on the mind for some of our listeners right now, and we had a question come in from Tim, and he was wondering if you knew how the bear numbers are looking at right now. Bear harvest numbers are looking at.
Yeah, so I shot a text out, and I did some Googling, but unfortunately I don't have those numbers yet. So as a warden, we learn a lot of information. We got the inside scoop on a lot of different things, but unfortunately there are a lot of things in the DNR. Especially when it comes from different programs where we kind of find out at the same time the general public finds out. So usually in like a press release from the Office of Communications or something like that. So I wish I had those numbers for you. What I can tell you from patrolling and talking with hunters is that there's a lot of bears this year. Some people are having really good success. Some people are not. But it seems like more often than not, people are telling me they've had a chance to harvest a bear. And from the people I've talked with, especially this one gentleman, he said that all the bears have a lot of fat on them this year. And if you believe in old wives' tales or myths or this or that, to him, and I'm sure there's some accuracy to it, he said any year when the bears are all full of fat, it means it's going to be a cold, cold winter. So I don't know if it's going to be a cold, cold winter, but to a couple bear hunters with all the fatty bears they're skinning out, it might be for a long winter.
Well, let's ask our farmer guy that. You should know stuff like that. Is that the Farmer's Almanac or something like that?
Absolutely. But part of that might be, Jake, because this last winter was so easy. Maybe they didn't use all their fat from last year getting through the last winter, because didn't you see, maybe when we talked to you about last spring, the bears were coming out of hibernation early this last year?
Yeah, well, yeah, with how warm it was this spring, but you're probably right. I mean, the amount of forage and food that they have between the increased numbers of prey, I'm sure with a warm spring and a relatively wet summer, the amount of food on the landscape is probably thick. So, it could be because they got an internal clock that tells them it's going to be cold, you better strap on some weight, or it could just be that it's a buffet year and they're all just able to eat what they want.
What other kind of information, deer hunting, it's thousands and thousands, but for the bears, when the hunters are hunting, are they, and I'm sure they know this, but for those of us that aren't bear hunters, what kind of information are you looking to gather to have a better handle on the bear herd, or whatever term you use to talk about a group of bears around Wisconsin? Are there some specific things?
Well, I know specifically the reason they have them send in the tooth and different stuff is to monitor the age and health of the animal. So, health and number seem to like the approximate number of species or animals in the state are the big things, because that's how they manage, what the carrying capacity. Like how many black bears can this part of the woods carry, and how many tags can we offer out and stuff like that. So the registration, I guess the registration numbers, the teeth that come in, those are all really important, so they can try to fine tune their estimates. So not only can we harvest more bears, but we're also protecting and managing what we have.
That's a fine number, because I don't know how far your range goes, but I know at 11 o'clock this morning up in Ladysmith, I don't know if you're part of that or not, there's a group of landowners and different farmers especially are going to be there, and they've invited DNR personnel and others to come in so they can explain a show. It's going to be a show and tell how much people don't realize how much damage bears and deer can do to crops, and the fact that you're only limited to $10,000, that doesn't go very far. So how do you determine, how many? And of course, it's a Chamber of Commerce situation too. When people come, they want them out of the area. They want to come to northern Wisconsin and see bear and see deer and see elk. But it's a fine project to try and balance of what's too many and do we have enough wildlife damage money out there to help these people?
Well, you're 100% right. There's no doubt. I've definitely seen the crop damage that not only deer and turkey and sandhill do, but bear. I mean, they get in there and they just mow that area down. So there's no doubt that is an issue, and $10,000 can go pretty quick. But you're right. I mean, it seems like that's the question for every species, right? It's like, between agricultural or business or, just personal aesthetic value of the animal, what's too many, what's not enough, what's the right line? I think that's a social, cultural question we've been asking for years. And in this modern culture of debating everything and, kind of being polarizing, I think it's harder to have those conversations where you try to meet in the middle. It seems like it's all one way or another sometimes. But no, I haven't heard about that meeting personally, but hopefully it has some good conversations that come out of it, and that's all we can kind of hope for, is that everyone keeps having conversations and tries to, I don't want to say walk in each other's shoes, but at least gives each other an opportunity to discuss why, a certain species is doing so much damage or why it's so important to have them on the landscape, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people realize, you've seen it, where bear get in there and they just take their arm, they just swing around in a circle, and they just take the corn down in tremendous amounts. And like you said, $10,000 is the limit, and it doesn't cover much. I remember talking to a guy, maybe I've mentioned this before, from up that way. He said, "Bob, are there any dairy farms for sale around Eau Claire?" I said, "Well, yeah, I suppose there are. Why?" He said, "Because up here I got the wolves taking out my calves." I said, "Well, shoot them." He says, "Well, you got to have a license." I said, "Well, get your license." He says, "Problem is, I get a license, I only shoot one, and they run in packs." So
right.
There's no answer, but it's frustrating.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, from both sides of it, it can get really frustrating. So, but no, I don't envy the situation of any farmer that has to go through crop damage or, depredation or anything like that. It's the livelihood, and you even hear some stories about some homeowners that lose their animals, and it stinks. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you got to balance out the ecosystem and the chain, and that's a question that I don't get paid enough to answer.
Hey, Jake, just a couple more questions here. I know there's a story in the Star Tribune, actually happened in Siren, Wisconsin, where an individual, a dad, was actually attacked by a bear, and his son, 12-year-old son, actually shot the bear to save his dad there. But I guess I wanted to ask you, if a situation like that happens where your life's in danger and it comes with a bear or something like that, what's after that to make sure everybody's safe and they're okay? And that is a DNR contacted usually? Do wardens get involved in investigations with that? What's kind of like a typical procedure after that?
Yeah, so I'll probably answer the question that most people are thinking is there was a warden that went and investigated or talked with them, and everything was legit as it sounds. Your dad's getting shot by or getting attacked by a bear, you're going to do what you got to do to save his life. So it was cleared out. That's all done. But to your question, which is a really good question, is like, what do you do in this circumstance? So the first thing we always say, and you mentioned it, is like, make sure everyone's healthy or safe. You got to protect yourself. Human life trumps animal life. But you have to be in fearing for your life. But the main thing is, just like you would do if you got into a bad car accident or you witnessed something else, is just call 911. So DNR wardens work very closely with every sheriff's department in the state. That's who our main dispatchers are. So, like, when I go out and work and I need to call something in or whatnot, I call Eau Claire County Sheriff's Office or their dispatchers. So, same thing up north. So if you call 911 in a situation like that, make sure you're safe, make sure you're not bleeding out or something like that, and then you just call 911. Once the dispatchers get your info, they're going to send a deputy and they're going to call a warden right away and say, hey, we got this going on. And we're obviously going to head out there. So don't worry about finding our tip line, the 1-800 number, and reporting that. Just call 911. They'll get a hold of us. We have really good relationships with the local counties and local law enforcement agencies, and even the feds if they get a complaint. So we'll respond and work through it. But like you said, the main thing is safety. So we're really glad to hear, and the warden investigator was really glad to hear that, the kid saved his dad, and, they're both home to have dinner tomorrow night,
Jake, with the sturgeons and such, I know that I've been seeing a lot of catches on Facebook in the Chippewa River. Have you heard anything about how the season's been going or has been going for some people?
Yeah, I stopped and talked to a few fishermen the other day. One of them had caught a 60-plus inch fish on the Chippewa here in Eau Claire, but he was more in the aspect of out catch and release fishing. He just likes the opportunity to target them, didn't keep it. So I think there's been a few. The difference with sturgeon is it's still kind of hand registered, as in like you got to bring it to a registration station. They'll take all the information and work through fisheries to get it applied into the DNR accounts and stuff like that. Versus you can't just call it in to our game reg line. So I can't see the numbers instantly. But what I do know is there's been a few taken. They got to be 60 inches, so they're obviously big fish. And then there are a fair amount of people though that will catch legal fish all throughout this month and just release them because they just don't, whether they don't want to eat them or they don't have the time to process them or do whatever. A lot of people do it for the sport over the harvest.
All right. You have anything more before we get to Jake there?
Nope, I'm pretty good shape.
All right. Well, Jake, you appreciate the time, man. As always, continue to be safe out there. Okay, buddy? We appreciate you checking in with us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it too. Thanks for having me, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Maybe it'll be just as nice. We'll find out.
There you go. He's Jake Bolks, DNR Warden for the great state of Wisconsin.